It is a story that has sparked quite a debate online. Today, there are calls for food labels to tell us just how much exercise would be needed to burn off some of the products we consume. The Royal Society for Public Health says that could be more effective at encouraging healthier choices and helping people to lose weight. Well, joining me now is author and mental health campaigner Hope Virgo, who does not like this idea, and she's about to tell us why. Hope, this is interesting because there are 13 million people classed as obese in the UK. The government has come up with so many different schemes, so many different ways of getting people to make healthier choices, and it seems like it is not working. What's wrong with this idea?
So my main concern with this idea is it is, again, another idea that is pushing an unhealthy relationship with food. And particularly people who've had eating disorders or are kind of at that stage in their life where they're quite vulnerable about their body or their self-esteem or their understanding of food. This type of labelling will trigger these people to develop an eating disorder or trigger them to relapse into it. As someone who's had anorexia and was massively obsessed with exercise, I already feel fearful about the fact that I will also find this kind of labelling on foods really, really triggering, despite being 11 years into my recovery.
Yeah, Hope, it's interesting though, isn't it? Because a lot of people simply don't understand how much exertion, physical exertion, is needed to out-train a bad diet. I mean, it's quite a lot. So a lot of people would find this useful in terms of when you look at something, it has calories and how much fat and everything is in it, but it doesn't actually put it into real terms for people. If somebody's picking up one of those grab-sized bags of crisps and it says, look, you're going to have to go for a 2-hour walk just to burn this packet off, people may well put it back and go for a smaller packet or go for something else completely because they can imagine in their mind what it would take to balance out that diet.
Yeah, no, and I do. I think for some people, yes, this kind of messaging does work. But in the kind of bigger scale of things, yes, we have an obesity crisis, but we also have an epidemic of people with eating disorders. We have a society that is so wrapped up in diet culture and people just cannot understand their bodies. And I think that this is just a really kind of a too simplistic message and a too simplistic plan to actually push out. And we're not going to be changing habits. We're going to be getting people obsessed with exercising and only kind of eating certain foods and being scared of certain foods because of that whole exercise aspect. I think what we should be doing instead is actually educating young people, parents, schools, carers, everyone on actually what a healthy lifestyle is and stop terrifying people about food.
Yeah. Hope, it's interesting. Are you against the calorie count on foods then? Because I've used this example last week because it's my favourite example because my guilty pleasure is a strawberry milkshake from McDonald's, which is 800 calories. And every time I see that, it actually makes me think twice about getting it. Not saying I, skip it every time. But, are you against that? Because obviously, if you have an eating disorder, you'll be counting calories and that's already there. Would you like to see all of that gone as well?
Yeah, in an ideal world, I would. I think for me, by having the calories on things and the exercise potentially put on them, it means that food becomes this really stressful, fearful factor. And it shouldn't be about calories and exercise. It should be about foods that we want to enjoy. And if we have that education piece, then it means that people understand what they should and shouldn't be eating. And the fact that you can have everything in moderation. You can have a strawberry milkshake as long as you're doing it in moderation. And I think that's the message that we need to be pushing more of instead of getting people so wrapped up. I also think with the whole idea around and the whole kind of facts about the obesity crisis is, yes, we have one. But actually, for some of those individuals, they might actually have an eating disorder. And so we're not tackling the mental health aspect of it. We're not tackling that emotional food eating and the way that they see food, but we're just plastering a whole heap of people as lazy and overweight and fat and not exercising enough. But actually, it might go so much deeper than that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about education on diet and teaching people to have a healthy relationship with food. I mean, for as long as I've, been around, I've heard this argument, and like I said, it doesn't seem to be working. There are some schools that, teach their kids this. There are some good parents that do that as well. But I'm thinking about the kids that go to school hungry, the kids that don't turn up at school, the parents who don't have time to cook a healthy, balanced meal. I'm just thinking of these simple shortcuts to help them understand. And obviously, you're talking about people with mental health and eating disorders, which is one thing, but that's a very small group compared to the rest of the nation who just want some basic, simple information.
But my thing on that is that actually places like Public Health England should be pushing out campaigns around educating kind of that whole healthy lifestyle thing, and put the money into that educational factor, whether it's through adverts on the telly or through the media or on billboards, whatever it might be, that we can attract people to understand that, instead of putting our money into labelling foods with calories and exercise.
OK, Virgo Hope, really good to talk to you about that proposal for
Thank you.
food labelling. Thank you very much for your point of view.